Recently, I was on Aliexpress and I saw this listing. For like $5, this retro clone played Super Mario World. I ordered and it arrived 2 weeks later. All it can do is boot some NES games. Also, 500 games is a big exaggeration. Most of the ROMs are just repeated over and over, and most of the entries are hacks for other NES ROMs. I couldn't help but feel salty about this. I was expecting it to boot Game Boy and NES, but alas. Anywho, I came across this listing. Big IPS screen, Nintendo Switch-like design, but above all else, it boasted NES, SNES, Game Boy, CP1, MAME, arcade, and Neo Geo emulators. Ratings were good, so I bought it. Let's see what we've got. This is X12 Plus or whatever competitors on AliExpress feel like naming the device, because more than 95% of the time, the underlying devices are the same with minor adjustments to the design and the title. Inside the box, we've got the console AV cable for your TV, micro USB cable, and earbuds. Gotta say, this puts modern smartphone provided accessories to shame. Let's start with the device, and oh god. Yeah, that pretty much sums up what's about to come. Specifications are tricky. When I bought it, not only it said CP1, MAME, arcade, and Neo Geo, but now all of that is gone. I think they also stated IPS panel, but it looks like a 7-inch TFT 360p panel. The funny thing is, even the listing can't agree on the model number and the total games available. I think plenty of people complained that the games you advertised won't run, so they keep changing the listing as more people complain. The device is glossy plastic and feels as you'd expect. At the front we have 2 joysticks, a D-pad, 4 buttons, 2 shoulder buttons, an escape key, and select start keys. At the back we've got 2 speaker grills. At the top we've got the power slider, 3.5mm headphone jack, an SD card slot, volume control, and a side key. Smartphone companies should take notes. Switch clone 2, everyone else 0. The buttons are alright, you know, they're not the best thing, but they get the job done. But these joysticks? Yikes, this is the stiffest thing I've ever used. I should rephrase that. But seriously though, it feels like someone dropped a bucket full of glue in there and I'm trying to move it. At times it can almost feel unusable. The shoulder buttons are also way too resistive, but they are better than the joysticks. Battery life is actually pretty good. It can last for around 3 to 3.5 hours at 75% brightness. Charging 0 to 100% takes around 1.5 hours. Surprisingly, you can actually connect it to your PC and it recognizes the device. Copy the ROMs to the internal storage or the external storage. Well done. The SD card speed was way too slow, so I took out the SD card and put it in an SD card reader. They could have given us the ability to add some emulators, but I don't think it's running Android. It's just some bare bone module here, so I can understand. Okay, let's actually talk about the games on here. Almost every game I tried is in Chinese, even though my selected language is English. I think they're just the Chinese version of the ROMs. We can play NES, SNES, CP1, Game Boy, and that's it. Oh, actually, after testing it a bit, I found out that PS1 games are playable, but more on that later. It is capable of emulating Neo Geo games, but only the lightweight ones. For example, King of Fighter 94 and 95 work perfectly, but every ROM after that gives out an error. Metal Slug 1 works just fine, but rest of them? Nope. They're on the same platform, but the ROMs are comparatively heavier, so maybe that's why. It is a letdown. Anyways, the games that you can emulate run smoothly. SNES games are a bit slower, but they can be emulated. You can save state and there's a recent directory list which can give out a list of recently played ROMs. There is no search function in here whatsoever. You have to navigate using the shoulder buttons, and that only navigates 5 entries at a time. So if you've got an SD card with thousands of ROMs, good luck navigating. Speaking of SD card, it needs to stick out ever so slightly. If you push it all the way in, it's not coming out. I did it and then used tweezers to barely eject it. In terms of screen, it's doable. I've certainly seen worse, but you have to be looking directly at it. Tilt it even a little and screen goes haywire. Display angles are no good. Finally, the PlayStation 1 games. The lightweight ones do just fine with some compromise, but heavy games suffer a lot. I mean, it's barely playable, but still kind of cool. Not Neo Geo and MAME though. That's weird. Alright, would I recommend this to anyone? At this price tag? Yes. But they advertised something else before and they keep changing the listing as more people complain. Emulator selection is pretty limited. Slightly demanding games in the same emulator won't run. Display is awful and joysticks are hella stiff. There is no search function. For the price, it isn't the worst thing, but just for 50-60 bucks more, you can get an Android console. They come with Cortex chip, run Android, have better screens, and you can add your own emulators. So you can emulate every console up until PlayStation 2. Depending upon what you get, you might even be able to play PlayStation 2 at acceptable frame rates. I know you can emulate on your phone, but it's just not the same as the dedicated device with physical buttons. But if you got cash to spare, buy an older Switch and run emulators on there. With that being said, this is Roguehat. I hope you guys enjoyed this perspective. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you guys later.